Hey guys, and welcome to Ozzie Reviews, and welcome to June Q&A. Now guys, if you want to be a part of this series, you can do it. All you need to do is just jump onto Patreon or be a supporter via PayPal. Now guys, there's no point in just writing a question below in the comments field on the Q&A videos because it'll just go unanswered. I can't possibly answer all the questions out there, okay? I have to limit it to those who support me via PayPal or on Patreon. So this month we're going to start off just with a comment from Patrick. Now he's commented on quite a lot of Q&A series, but he says, "Hi Ozzie, just a quick note to thank you for the ongoing reviews and advice. I purchased the Javelot Pro after your review and wouldn't have known about many of the excellent products without these unbiased reviews. Cheers, Pat." Well mate, look, I appreciate that greatly. Since starting the channel, that was the big thing that I wanted to do, was create unbiased reviews. I mean, how many times do you look at a review and it's got some company logo over it and you're just thinking, okay, well, is this a paid review or what's happening here? So, I wanted to create something that was completely unbiased there. Now, in saying that, obviously, as you go on and you're doing reviews, you'll have companies that will naturally, send you stuff. But in my case, if I have a company that sends me something or loans me a product, they know damn well that it gets reviewed exactly how it is. So, and you can see that throughout my reviews, like there's numerous reviews where negatives have pulled out, showing magazine issues with rifles or it doesn't shoot accurately or, it doesn't get the MOA guarantee or whatever. And then very much the same with different product reviews, in general that aren't firearms themselves. I mean, if, they don't work, well, unfortunately, that's the way it is. But so it's been a long journey with regards to that. You've always got companies who will try to get you to say certain things, but then obviously in my case, I won't deal with those companies. Anyone who tries to manipulate or get me to say what they want me to say, well, it's just not on, because that's the thing. Aussie Reviews is about unbiased reviews that show you exactly how product works for me at the time, and that's just definitely not going to change. So thanks very much, Patrick. It's always nice to get different comments come in, just showing support, because it really gives me the motivation to keep going. So thanks again for that. So the first question we've got this month is from Henry, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, 7.62 by 39 or 6.5 Grendel for shooting pigs, dogs, etc. What are your thoughts and opinions on the 7.62 by 39 for hunting? Cheers, Henry." Well, mate, the first 7.62 by 39 I had was the SKS rifle, okay? And obviously that was perfect for going out and shooting pigs on the family farm, because, we were able to have fast follow-up shots. So, you had a couple in a mob and, you were easily able to humanely eradicate them. Thing is, though, back then, we were using full metal jacket military ammunition, because it was coming into the country for like $2.50 for a pack of 20, and that was just a non-corrosive Norinco military ammo. So, we still did the job with that. Plenty of knockdown and power for pigs. Dogs, obviously, even possibly overkill, because dogs are a very light-skinned game. But yeah, in general, these days, the 7.62 by 39 has certainly come a long way with its factory offerings. I mean, you can get some custom hunting loads for it now. You're not just, limited to that ex-military sort of surplus. So yeah, very good. I would choose it over the 6.5 Grendel personally. I mean, I've not used a 6.5 Grendel, but I am aware of its ballistic data and, the round in general. But, it's got more knockdown over the 7.62 by 39. But honestly, for hunting distances, which for me is 75 to 125 yards, absolute maximum 200. I mean, very rarely am I in a hunting situation where I need to shoot at that distance. But the 7.62 by 39 will be fine, for those hunting distances. No two ways about it. Pigs, dogs, all that sort of thing. Now, the other thing to keep in mind too, I mean, I don't know what your personal situation is, but, for me, I always like to have ammunition that I can go into a local store and just easily purchase. So, if you're out on a hunting trip somewhere and you've used all the 7.62 by 39 ammo, you need to go into the local town and get some more, well, 9 times out of 10 they're going to have it on the shelf over the 6.5 Grendel. So that's just something else that I'd take into consideration. Next question I got here is from Rosalind. Hi Ozzie, was thinking about buying once, crying once, and purchasing either an Atlas bipod or an MDT pod. Your thoughts on both, please. To use on multiple guns, or buy multiple Harris bipods for each gun due to their lower purchase costs. Love the segment. Thanks very much, Rosalind. Well, look, the Atlas bipod I've certainly used. I've never owned one. Okay, so I can't argue about the quality. You know, from the ones I've used, the quality is certainly there, so no arguments from me there. Obviously, the only negative with it is the price, you know, the cost of it. The MDT pod, I haven't used it, sorry, so I can't comment on that. However, Harris bipods I've been using for well over 20 years, and I've never ever had an issue with one. Never. It's never failed. So really it comes down to what your use is, Rosalind. I mean, are you going to be going into competitions where you're going to be, you know, wanting a bipod to be able to manipulate in all different directions, you know, one leg independently of the other, and, you know, etc., etc., then yeah, I'd probably say you'd get the value out of the Atlas. However, if you just want something that you can, you know, have on the bench at the range, and then now and then you're going to be probably shooting prone, then obviously the Harris will be just fine. I mean, they've got all the basic features and functions, and like I say, I can't complain about their quality. Next question I got here is from John. He says, hi Ozzie, love your work. What's your advice for a reasonably priced red dot for an Adler A110 shotgun for peak shooting? I find I have to hunch down over the existing ramp and post sights to get a good sight picture, and think that a red dot will come up to the eye more cleanly for snapshots. I've looked at the Bushnell first strike, but several reviews say the glass cracks due to the recoil. Mate, absolutely agree with you there. Red dot, you know, is just so much easier to shoot with. As for the actual brand, I mean, personally, I wouldn't be putting a Bushnell on top of my firearm, or any firearm I own personally. I mean, I've said it before, and it's nothing against those brands, because I do review, you know, brands that are, you know, made in the Philippines or made in China, and if they work properly, and I have no issues with them, then obviously they get reviewed exactly how they are. So, but personally, we're just talking personally here, I would never ever buy a Filipino or Chinese made optic and have it on my own personal firearm. So for me, the ultimate red dot is aim point. You know, I love aim point red dots. I've had numerous different models over many different years, and they've just worked perfectly. Now, the ones that I'd probably recommend, because you want to keep something, you know, nice and compact, is the aim point micro. Okay, so they make them in two different series. There's the H series and the T series. So you've got the H1 and the T1. The only difference is the T1 has night vision settings. That's the only difference. So if you don't need that, save yourself some money and drop back to the H. To look at them dimensional wise, they're identical. It's just internally they're different settings that they've got. So you've now got the T2 and the H2. So once again, you know, the only difference being between the T and the H is night vision settings. But the difference between the T2, H2 over the T1 and H1 is that the T2 and the H2 have flip-up sight covers, also protected elevation and windage turrets, and also internally there's an upgrade there to the red dot. So a little bit better, I suppose, technology-wise, but honestly, mate, I own both, and you look through them pretty much side by side. Very, very little difference. And for what you're doing with a shotgun, honestly, I'd be just going out and trying to get a second-hand aim point H1 if you can find one, hopefully around about $400, $450, or just pay for a new one, and you'll definitely have no problems whatsoever with the glass cracking or any problems like that whatsoever. I swear by them. I've had them on the SR762 semi-auto 308, the SR556 semi-auto 223, Benelli M4, you know, that's semi-auto 12 gauge, and numerous other firearms, and they have just worked perfectly for me each and every time, so I highly recommend them. Next question we got here is from F-Tops, and he says, hey Ozzie, what do you think of the Wedgetail WT15 case and the GoFundMe that's been set up to help it? Do you think we have a chance at finally regaining some lost ground? Well, mate, I'm proud to say, I threw in $100 to it. There's certainly a lot of people who threw in a lot more. And, I think they're up to a considerable amount of money, at this stage. So, look, good luck to them. I do hope that they have a win at the end of the day. I can see arguments on both sides, but my personal view on it is, if you're a government department and you issue a permit to acquire to someone, well, the responsibility is on you to make sure, A, that person is able to have that item, and B, you need to understand what the item is that they're putting in a permit for, and make sure that, they're able to have it. So once that permit to acquire has been issued, as far as I'm concerned, there's no going back on it and going, oh, sorry, we made a mistake. I mean, just because you don't like the look of a firearm, this is where really that, cosmetic appearance law and policy comes into play, and it just needs to go, in my view. So this is a good example of it. But, mate, they're still fighting it out as far as I'm aware. There's still a court date yet to be set, to have everything heard. So, honestly, I don't think it'll be finalised for some time, but I wish them the very best of luck. Now, I've got a question here from John. He says, hey, Ozzie, are you able to point me in the right direction as to where's the best place in Australia to buy aftermarket stocks for the CZ 452 and 455? Apart from the Boyd stocks that are sold here, which are mainly for varmint, not sporter type barrels. We are pretty limited on choice of stocks here in Australia. Cheers, mate, John. Well, the only others that I know of that are sold regularly here are the GRS ones, okay? Now, they're distributed by Naya, and they do have a line of hunting ones, okay? To me, they still look reasonably bulky, so I don't know, mate. You'd have to have a look at them. So jump on the Naya website, have a look at GRS and the Hunter line. Apart from that, the only real option that you have is finding the stock that you want overseas, and you can either email them directly and see if you can purchase and get it shipped. If you can, then that's fine, because, fixed stocks can come into the country, no problem whatsoever. You don't require any permits to do that. If they won't ship it to you, then that's when you've got to approach a dealer here in Australia who does import or who can import, and then get them to import it for you. So that's really your only options there. Next question I got here is from Gary, and he says, hi Ozzie, I'm looking at getting my first under and over shotgun. I'm left-handed and was wondering whether this makes much difference with shotguns. Also, I'm on a budget of about $1,200. Would you be able to suggest any brands to look into? Cheers. Well, mate, 100% Maruku. That comes to mind. I mean, I recently reviewed the MK70. Now, I've had that for over 15 years. It has just been a absolute flawless, perfect, all-round, just great under and over shotgun. Perfect for left and right-handed shooters. If you're not looking at that particular make and model, just be aware that when you look at other shotguns, yes, there can be a cheek piece, in the rear stock. So if you're left or right-handed, it's going to make a difference. So just be aware of that, but you don't have that problem with the MK70. So price on them, I had a look just prior to doing this series, just to get an updated price for you. And Cleavers have got them for $1,390. So I mean, virtually anywhere in Australia, I imagine you'd be paying around about that $1,500. So well worth putting a little bit extra over your $1,200 budget into it, mate. If you haven't seen the review, please take a look at the Maruku MK70 Sporter review that I've done, because honestly, you'll see just how that shotgun performs out in the field, the whole lot. Just a brilliant shotgun, and I highly recommend it for someone getting into shotgun shooting like you are. Now, I've got another question here from Gary. He says, it may be a stupid question, but if you decock a bolt-action rifle by pulling the trigger and lowering the bolt, would it have enough force to set off a round? Obviously, safety protocol would ensure this wouldn't happen, but it has intrigued me. Cheers, Gaz. Well, mate, it's not something that, to be honest, that I recommend trying. I have seen it before where obviously it doesn't set off a round, but you've got to realise that by doing that, there's a chance that firing pin can be resting against a primer, of the case. So I just wouldn't do it. That's a big no from me. Can it be done? Yes, possibly, but mate, I just wouldn't do it. Next question I got here is from Lee, and he says, a weird one I know, Ozzie, but what exactly is the requirement for Cat H storage with the action broken, even though it's inside a lockbox, inside a gun safe? I'm all for safe storage, but this seems ridiculous. I can't find any information on the QPS sites or Queensland Weapons Licensing site. Mate, very simple, okay? So the legislation there talks about either the bolt removed or the action broken. So a bolt obviously is for a bolt action where the bolt can easily be removed, okay? So the bolt is to be removed and then the firearm put in the safe. If you've got a semi-auto or, you know, like a toggle action, like a PWS Volquartsen or something like that, then obviously the action just simply needs to be broken. So if you've got a chamber safety flag, you know, like the Tapco ones that I like using, simply put one of them in and then you can close the bolt down on it, but it's still going to provide a gap, okay, between the chamber and the bolt. So the action is actually broken. So yeah, that would be all that's required there, mate. If you're looking at pistols, let's also expand to revolvers. Very simple. Push the cylinder out to the side there. You can even put a chamber safety flag in and close up the cylinder. Obviously, it won't close the whole way. The action is broken. So that's all it means. Next question I got here is from Bernard, and he says, "Hi Ozzie, I want to improve my shooting accuracy while hunting. Sometimes an opportunity presents to shoot an animal and a natural rest is not available, such as a tree. What things can be done to improve stand-up shots? I'm using a Lithgow 223 with an O-light on foxes." Well, mate, the Lithgow 223 isn't the lightest of rifles, you know, so you add a scope, you add the O-light on top of it, you know, it's certainly going to be a heavy setup. So shooting from the shoulder is going to be a little bit difficult. Now, the only thing that I've ever used, and I can only suggest to you when you're in the open field and you've got nothing around you and you don't want to obviously drop prone or anything like that, is simply have a sling, okay? You got the sling on the rifle, put your arm in, back up to the stock, and you'll have the sling going across here on the outside of the arm, and you can get tension and stability from that. That's the only way to do it. So obviously, if you've got that, then you just need to practice. That's the only thing that I can advise, mate, because there's really nothing else unless you actually want to take, you know, some of those mobile sort of shooting sticks out with you where you can, you know, quickly use that. But I mean, you've said here you're not, so that's really the only other option that you've got. Next question I got here is from Greg, and he says, "As an older guy with my short range sight starting to go, I struggle with any scope up towards maximum zoom, as I figure my short range sight can't handle it anymore. The obvious answer is to wear my glasses. I'm still in denial about that. But I also wondered if you had any advice or if there are any resources or articles about scope selection for those with vision problems. Given the age of most daytime shooters at the range, it must be a common issue." Well, mate, yes, it is. I mean, obviously, all of us are going to suffer, you know, eyesight problems as we get older. That's inevitable. So the thing that you really want to do here is obviously if you have a scope with a parallax adjustment, okay, a side focus, so you'll see on the turret to the side, you'll have like, you know, 50, 75, 100, 200, 300 yards, meters, whatever. You know, you can adjust that till the sight picture becomes nice and clear for you. Now, if, for example, you're shooting at 100 and you've got that parallax adjustment on 100, but it's blurry to you, don't be afraid to go off that, you know, to go back down towards 75 or up to, you know, towards 200, because if it gives you that correct sight picture and you've got no, you know, focus issue there, that's right for your eye. So, you know, feel free to use it and make sure that you can shoot accurately with it. If you've got something that doesn't have parallax adjustment, you know, like you might have a, say, a 3 to 9 by 40 scope, you know, and there's and it's a fixed parallax and say 100 yards built into the scope. Well, the only way to change any sort of focus is with the eyepiece. So usually with the eyepiece, what you'll find is just in front of it, there'll be a locking ring. Just loosen that a little bit, and then you can grab the rear of the eyepiece and just turn it anti-clockwise, clockwise, just till it becomes clearer. That can also help you as well. The only other thing I would suggest here too, mate, is, and I know, like, even when I've used, very high power scope magnification before. If you're shooting at like 100 yards and you've got like a scope put on 25 power, 24 or whatever, just drop it down, bring it back to like say 18 or 16 power, and you'll probably find that that will clear the picture up as well, because you can have too much magnification at those shorter ranges too. So just keep that in mind and let me know how you go. Next question I got here is from David, and he says, hi Ozzie, 22 Hornet versus 17 Hornet. What are your thoughts on both for hunting? Well mate, depending on what you're hunting, but the 17 Hornet had a lot of improvements over the 22 Hornet when it was released. The biggest thing was the amount of times you can reload for it. It didn't have the thin jacket that the 22 Hornet has got, so there was a big advantage there. Obviously with the 17 caliber, you're very limited with your bullet weight. Okay, you can go up to about 25 grain, where obviously with the 22 Hornet, it's a lot higher. I like the 22 Hornet personally. I like 22 caliber over 17. I know the 17 usually it's moving a lot quicker, has usually a higher ballistic coefficient, shooting flatter as well, and there's a lot of advantages. But I just absolutely hate cleaning the 17 barrels. When I had that 17 WSM of mine in the Ruger, I mean, the amount of actual rods that I bent trying to clean that damn thing, God, it really left a sour taste in my mouth, and I was just finding it very difficult to warm to the 17 in general. So look, at the end of the day, each to their own, but I know that the 17 is obviously, it's got a lot more advantages to it, but I do like the 22 Hornet because I like to have that range with the heavier projectiles, which with hunting distances with these firearms, you're not going to be shooting, any more than a couple hundred yards. Let's be honest. 22 Hornet is probably my favorite there. Okay guys, so we'll wrap up. That's it for this month's Q&A. Thank you to everyone who submitted the questions. I really do enjoy answering them, and some of them, are a bit of a challenge and they give me a laugh. So thanks again for submitting them, and we'll see you on the next Q&A series.